is 7 o'clock, top of the hour here. So again, my name is Nubian London. I'm the Senior Director of Admissions at the Pasadena campus. I oversee our admissions team that handles the enrollment for our students who are either attending the ground campus in Pasadena or taking classes online. Right now, all students, for the most part, are virtual because of COVID and safety reasons. Our ground our campus is all based online right now. Our ground students actually get live sessions with their instructors. They go to school virtually. And our online students, they are online, they're asynchronous, which means there's not a live session with the instructor, but you have access to the instructor to ask questions. And we can go into more details about the difference between the virtual campus and the online campus. I also want to introduce Christy Waterman, one of our affiliate faculty members at the School of Ed. Christy is going to do the majority of the presentation tonight. I would say she's one of our core faculty members, somebody that we rely on for questions when it comes to the School of Ed. So you'll get a chance to also meet Christy. Okay. Let's go to the next slide. All right.
Hey everyone,
So,
can you hear me?
Yes, hi Christy.
Hi.
You want to introduce yourself real quick and tell them how long you've been with Pacific Oaks?
Sure, of course. Hi everyone, my name is Christy Waterman. I am the affiliate faculty for the ECE program for BA students. I have been with Pacific Oaks since 2017. I began in the School of Education as a program manager, so I know a lot of the ins and outs of both the ECE program and the credential programs, having worked with both of them. But my background is actually in ECE. I have my master's degree from Tufts University in child development, and I have worked in the field for almost 20 years as a program director, a preschool director, a school age program director, an executive director. So I've been around the blocks working with children and families. I'm originally from Oklahoma, so I worked with a lot of tribal institutions there as being a member of the Seminole Nation of Oklahoma myself. So my graduate degree was in Massachusetts, and then I've lived in California for about 16 years, almost 17 years. So I've been here, there, and everywhere, working with children and families in a variety of capacities. So I'm very excited to be with you all because I love talking about children. I think they're amazing. Sometimes I've been known to get a little teary-eyed when I'm talking about how just astounded I am at what little creatures they are. So that's a little bit about me.
Awesome, awesome. Thank you, Christy.
Sure.
So I'm going to go over the agenda real quick here, and then I'm going to turn this back over to Christy Waterman, and she is going to take over from there. But we're going to go over a brief history of Pacific Oaks College and our early childhood education program. Many of you may or may not know this, but we've been around in Pasadena for 75 years. This is our 75th anniversary. Christy's also going to talk about theory and coursework, some of the learning outcomes and what you should expect, the theory and practice. That second part, practice, is important. It's something that you will get access to as a part of your education and training here. There's going to be an open conversation towards the end, like we talked about, a chance to give you guys a chance to ask questions of Christy. So kind of jot down your questions and be prepared for that. And then towards the end, I'll make sure you guys have our contact information so that you can get back in touch with us with any follow-up questions that we can help you with, okay? All right, so let's move on to the next slide here. And Christy, I'm gonna have you take over from here, okay?
Sure. So as you all can, and as Nubian mentioned, we have been an entity in some form since 1945, beginning with the Pacific Oaks Friends School. It was established by a group of parents of Quakers, and the values that those families really wanted to present as an experience for their children have guided a lot of what we still do today. And so the college was born out of the children's school and wanting to train teachers in the ways that those families that gathered together had done. So they thought that would be great as coming up with like a methodology for training teachers. And so in those early roots, we have the anti-bias curriculum that was formed, and you see the lovely quote from Professor Derman Sparks and Edwards above about anti-bias education as a way of teaching that helps children learn to be proud of themselves and their families, respect a range of human differences, recognize unfairness and bias, and speak up for the rights of others. So we still adhere to that. It's a part of our core values of diversity, respect, social justice, inclusion, with an emphasis on producing quality early childhood educators who understand the value of individuals. And that influence on curriculum developed here is still being taught through and implemented throughout many child development programs across the country. Our faculty are dedicated to instilling our programs with practitioner-based knowledge, but also valuing all members of the learning community as human beings. We really, and I can say that not only just as now a faculty member myself, but as the program manager, I really was involved in selecting the adjunct faculty who would teach these programs. And they are stellar individuals with practitioner knowledge, because that's what we are preparing primarily, are practitioners who know how to apply the theories that they're learning in a real practical world experience. I think we can talk about the connection between theory and coursework. Some examples listed here. I actually was just in class before I joined you guys with ECE 301. So it's the foundations of ECE and current issues in the education of young children. So that course aims to provide opportunities of discussion around theory and connecting it to your practice, so that students have that opportunity to observe, document, and assess the various methods that are established within the field in order to influence their everyday practices to better support young children and their families. Our ECE 391 is the supervised practicum course. It really allows for opportunity to develop the skills and observe cooperative learning, curriculum development, classroom management techniques, and then to be able to really differentiate between instruction, lesson planning, and assessment methodologies. And then 406 is another course I teach. That is the course that I will get a little teary-eyed when I'm talking about children, because Emergent curriculum approach really looks to relevant sources of curriculum, so that you are collaborating with not only your staff members, your administrators, but also parents and families, and really making learning relevant, and looking at the classroom environment as an opportunity to incorporate and make a learning community And in that class, there's a culminating project of creating your emergent curriculum approach to incorporate science, social studies, math, and literacy. And then when you look at the MA courses, you've built on the experiences that you would have as a BA. With ECE 500, it aims to promote leadership, developmentally responsive leadership, and a delivery of services for both children and the adults who care for them. And then in 530, it's a public policies course. So you're looking at really what are the historic impacts of public policy, and regarding particularly the education systems that are influencing the education of young children. So how does that influence the qualifications that are required of teachers or administrators? How are resources being allocated? What are influencing those decisions? How are they changing? And then what effects does that have on systems that are serving children and their families? And then how are you really deciding, or who is deciding, or what are influencing measures of quality of care being provided to children and their families? So you're really looking at a lot of the socioeconomic influences, the cultural influences, the societal influences on policy that really affect and influence care for young children and their education. And then EC 540, that is creating responsive communities for all families. So we're really looking at developing, again, leadership that builds a culturally responsive and inclusive learning community to increase communication and collaboration with families, because the overarching theme or approach, I should say, not theme, of early childhood education is we look at a child not merely as a student sitting in front of you as a member of a classroom, but that's one component of them. They're also a member of a family. They're a member of a culture. They are more than just, one thing at this one time, that you look at a whole child approach. So that's really what we're doing when we are coming from an early childhood approach to look at kids, as opposed to just like a student who needs to learn math or a student who needs to learn science. We're really looking at, the bigger picture, involvement, collaboration, and kind of really understanding that all of those things are having an influence all at the same time. And so how can we be a positive impact and part of that system in a positive way?
Awesome. I would be remiss to not point out to everybody the photos that you actually see there are actual photos from the children's school. So a lot of what Christy is talking about, the holistic approach and the approach that we have to our learning, it's all about the environment as well that the students are in and the impact that it has on them. So the photos that you see here, keep in mind, that's from our children's school. Yeah,
the Reggio Emilia approach will definitely tell you that the environment was the third teacher, assuming you have two teachers in the classroom, that is, the environment is very important to a learning experience, whether it be positive or negative. The environment plays such a crucial role. It really does. And that's not just the physical environment, it's the emotional environment. Like when you set up an environment where children feel welcome, where families feel welcome and nurtured, like that's part of a responsibility of classroom management, is to make sure not just that it's safe environmentally, physically, but that it's also emotionally safe. So those are things like, again, I know I talk about that in 406. We talk about that as part of the responsibility of, devising a curriculum that's encompasses that and addresses those issues and concerns.
Yeah.
So theory and practice. So it hasn't been in the hand and the body, it can't be in the brain. And that's definitely, we know children, and I think many adults, they learn through doing. And that's an approach that we definitely, we have a reputation that is based in leadership in learning through play. And it's something that we definitely harp on, if you will, because that's just children's natural way of learning. And it's just making sure that you have those experiences as a professional with field work to connect all of those theories into your practice, because that's really the point, is not just to like hypothesize all the time about what if, but to really see it play out and to be able to identify it when you see it so that you know what's happening, how to either curb it if perhaps there's behaviors that are undesired, or to propel learning and to identify gaps. And so that you really can do observations, do reflections, and examine your role, examine others' roles, and then go back and see how you can improve upon it to extend learning and things like that. So that's really what you would do in your practicum and your field work. Like there's a field work journal in 406 where you're, following, it could either be a particular group, a particular age group, where you then use that to inform what classroom you're going to set up. Like if you were setting up an emergent curriculum classroom based on observations, based on what you've seen that works, what doesn't work, what you know of theory, how would you incorporate all of that and create your ideal emergent classroom, addressing math, science, literacy, social studies, so that you are really thinking these things through and being intentional. And then action research is what master's students culminate their program with. So they research and study to improve their practice and demonstrate the mastery of the concepts that they've been learning throughout their program. And then it culminates in the design and presentation of an action research project that will really reflect their personal journey and their personal philosophies to kind of basically demonstrate their expertise and knowledge that they've gained.
Excellent. So students get fieldwork experience in their undergrad, and then they have an action research project as a graduate student.
Correct.
Excellent.
And hi, Christy, we have a couple of questions from our chat box here. One is, can students use their current place of employment for field work?
They can, just not their own classroom. Because as an observer, you want to be objective, and with the kids who will know you very familiar, you won't be able to be objective. So you can use your center, just not your own classroom.
Excellent. And what is a typical assignment for field work? What are students typically doing during field work? And the next one is there any way to get credit for some of their previous experience working in ECE?
As far as the practicum, okay, I'll answer backwards. As far as the practicum, there are, but it's a kind of a case-by-case basis where it gets vetted, and we have to verify a sorts of how many years and what type of a role and things like that. So it would definitely be something that you would address in the course with the instructor. And if they have any questions, they can of course reach out to myself or Professor Carlos for clarification. So yes, there are some allowances made, because in the practicum course, I believe you have to get 120 hours. So that's like 17 hours a week, I think. So that's a challenge, especially in the times we're in right now. So it's something that we would consider. Absolutely, yes. And then for field work, it's again kind of doing you're going out and doing observations, but obviously in this time, unless you're in a center that's up and running and would allow you to do that, we've made some allowances for video observations to take the place of live observations. But it would be focusing on particular areas, and then making journals, making reflections on those, and then kind of like in 406, there's a fieldwork journal. So it's a cumulative experience where you're doing several observations, you're doing journal entries, and then towards the end of the course, you do a reflection on what those observations kind of meant. Like, did you see patterns arise? Were you drawn to a particular child, and why did you think that you were drawn to that particular, or were you drawn to a particular activity? Just kind of honing your skills to observe, because your own observations as a professional are key in really assessing where children are learning, to improve on making learning visible, and then to also see where gaps are, to where you can meet those gaps and close them. I hope that answered the question.
And it does look like there was just one other about that. So we did say that practicum fieldwork could be done at a current place of employment. One other kind of add-on to that is, what if you own that preschool? Can you still do your fieldwork at a preschool, maybe if you're the owner of the school?
Well, I would have to ask, you could, I would think, if you are not one of the classroom teachers. But even if you are the owner and you have more than one, if it's an in-home care, that's going to be a challenge, because you are basically also a teacher. So again, it's the same thing about being an objective observer. That would be a challenge. But if you own a center that has like multiple, or 2 classrooms where you're not working actively as the teacher, then you could probably go to the other classroom sort of thing. So if you're not the teacher, then that means you're not in there. They would be familiar with you, obviously, but it's not the same familiarity as the teacher who's in there every day. And also, that bias is likely less to be there, if you know what I'm saying, because you probably have to observe anyway as their teacher. This is something that should be separate from what you're doing as your regular duties. This is you as a student, if that makes sense to you.
Okay. Let's move on. So we've come to the end of the presentation, and this is a chance for you guys to unmute yourself. We definitely want to hear your questions that you might have for Christy, or about the program, or any general. A lot of times I get questions regarding career options and things like that. So let me open up the floor and stop talking, and allow you guys to ask Christy your questions.
Hello, Christy. My name is Cedric.
Hi, Cedric.
And I was just wondering exactly what are the job opportunities after getting, after getting the master's. Say if you want to go to get your PhD, or I don't. What are the job opportunities, just besides being in the classroom? Maybe you want to use the opportunity to do something else with children. Is there any other opportunities as well as being a teacher, and formulating that? Is there any others?
If I understand you correctly, you're talking about obtaining a master's degree and then utilizing that to something other than being a classroom teacher. Yes, obviously you can remain within the center-based as a site director, a program director, an executive director. Those sorts of pathways are definitely going to be more open to you. There's also advocacy that you would be, especially if you work within the trauma specialization. There would
Okay.
definitely be opportunities for advocacy positions and leadership and policy making. There are like recently I saw one, I can't remember the name of it, but like it's in Sacramento to work with researching and collecting for policy to help support what monies should be spent and where, and like also developing policies and things such as that. So there's definitely with that knowledge that you would have, there's other avenues besides, I hate saying just being a teacher because Lord knows it's not just anything, but beyond being a teacher.
Oh, thank you so much. Yes, beyond being a teacher. I agree. I
Yes,
absolutely agree.
just being a teacher, it's beyond being a teacher.
Beyond being a teacher.
Okay, great. That was a great question, Cedric. Do we have any other questions from other students?
Me, I have a quick question.
Go ahead, Terry.
So is the early childhood education program, does it encompass child development or is that a separate program?
Good question.
Well, typically the term child development is not as focused. It's a broader age range, whereas early childhood education focuses on birth to age 8, and child development, depending on the institution or the program, could be broader. But here for Pacific Oaks, what we're talking about is from birth to age 8.
Perfect.
Great. And I see we have Dr. Judy Castro, who was here earlier, and I made the mistake of not opening up the microphone so Judy could introduce herself. So Dr. Castro, will you please introduce yourself to our wonderful students here?
Thank you very much for the opportunity. I do need to let you know where I was, and I was coming back and forth. I am representing the Hispanic Chambers of Commerce of Contra Costa, and we were having our first debate for some local candidates for council, education, the whole gamut. I'm still like, oh my gosh, where was I earlier? But I wanted to take the opportunity to introduce myself. I am an AVP with Partnership Development at Pacific Oaks. This is my 3rd week, and this has been an opportunity for me to join you in the info sessions, not only to learn from you, but also to give you an idea of who we are and what I'm doing. The Pacific Oaks was awarded $2.5 million with the Hispanic Serving Institution Grant. And it is an opportunity for us to implement a support system for our undergraduate population and students at large. So if there is a need for any equipment, laptops and tablets, we are there to support you. Additional services beyond what the Learning and Care Center have, not to replace, but to augment the services that are there for you in order for you to succeed. So that is an opportunity that we are very pleased that the Department of Education awarded us the grant. So thank you very much for the opportunity to be with you tonight.
Thank you, Dr. Castro. I mean, we are really pumped about that grant, and like you mentioned, it's a great opportunity for us to enhance the services that we have now and really go above and beyond most institutions. So that's really great that you're heading that for us. And that's one of the things I would like all of our students to take away is that we know the majority of our students are working adults and going back to school. And we saw a lot of questions about doing field work at your current place of employment or possibly at your learning center. We want you to understand that Pacific Oaks is here to support our students who are working adults, who are parents as well. And so if you do have questions around that and what that looks like as a student at Pacific Oaks, please ask those questions as well. But let me open up the floor for other questions. Terry, I think you just asked the last question. I know there was someone else that, Kenya. Did you have any questions?
Not at that moment.
Okay.
Newbie, and there's another question in the chat from Marilena.
Okay, I see it here. While we do like to see previous education in ECE or child development, not having that background will not prevent you from being, okay, so this is Michael's answer to that. So does a master's, does it require a bachelor's degree in early childhood education? And that's a good question. So we may have students who are on the line considering a master's in early childhood education, Christy, but they may have a bachelor's degree in a different subject or field. Can you talk about that and how that transition may work for those students?
Sure. I don't have a bachelor's degree in early childhood or child development. I have a bachelor's degree in psychology. So the short answer is no, you don't have to, but obviously the theoretical knowledge that you would have would be helpful, but it's not, as Michael stated, it's not an absolute necessity. But I would say, you know, if you have that interest, you probably have somewhat, you've experienced some background related. You may not have, but you probably will have, I can't imagine that you just out of the blue decided to get a master's in early childhood education without some experiential knowledge with working with children and families. So that kind of thing would be supported in being successful. As I mentioned previously with the master's level courses, yes, there is some needed knowledge in theory and established, but you would definitely still be getting some of that referenced, and probably that would be encouraged that you research to build on that knowledge as well, because when we're going into the master's level, as you can, I don't know if you noticed that I'm talking a lot about leadership skills and things like that. So rooted in the ECE fundamentals are development of leadership skills and approaches, and even more critical thinking skills. So like, as Michael said, it's not an absolute necessity. It would obviously be very helpful, but again, not an absolute 100% necessity.
Perfect. Then I saw a question regarding, will my units be transferable to other colleges? And the answer to that, it depends on the institution that you are transferring to. They will set their own guidelines regarding the transferability of credits from Pacific Oaks into their particular program. The same way that Pacific Oaks, we set our own guidelines regarding the transferability of credits into our degree programs. So I hope that answers your question. I know it's not a direct answer because it's hard for us to speak for other schools regarding their transfer policy.
I have one other question. I'm not sure if you could answer it.
Sure.
I was trying to register for the spring session 2, but it wasn't available yet. Do you know when that would be available?
Good question. Christy, you might know when we're going to have those available.
I mean, all I can, from my perspective, I know that the schedules are set and have been submitted. It's just a matter of getting them up and available to the students. So I would think probably pretty soon.
Can I like start the process at all, like getting transcripts sent in or ahead of time, or do I need to wait?
No, Terry, you definitely, if you are not admitted yet, if you're still going through the admissions process,
Yeah.
you definitely want to get all your documents submitted first. Right now, we are registering students for the spring semester, or spring term, I should say. They will be also enrolling and registering students for the spring 2 term as well. That will be coming, that term starts in March. So our priority right now are for the students who are going to be starting in January.
Right.
So yeah, there's nothing wrong with getting all your documents submitted now in place and everything in order. And then your academic counselor will be building your schedule, reaching out to you, and having a discussion with you about your future courses.
Perfect. Awesome. Thank you so much.
Looks like we had just a couple other questions here in the chat box. So one of those, Christy, is how are the bachelor's degree program classes structured? I'm thinking maybe in, what do the schedules look like? How do we, what do we do, nights of the week, hours, etc.?
Sure. Well, we have, and we will probably for this fall, everybody was online, like fully online, except for cohort groups. Moving into fall, we'll step back into trying to have both ground, which would be virtual, and online. So typically ground courses have one night a week that they meet from about 5:30 to 10. We meet in those courses Monday through Thursday. So one day a week for 8 weeks, basically. Well, technically 7, and have those face-to-face courses. But of course, currently those would be virtual. And it wouldn't be what we would traditionally offer of the 5:30 to 10, because we don't want to have you plastered to a screen for 4 hours. So those would be kind of reduced and other things offered in the Canvas shell. And then online is offered in the same way, oftentimes with a weekly meeting that is optional, just so that if you want to touch base with your instructor, definitely during the first week, all online courses offer a Zoom meeting so that they can touch base and meet the instructor, just kind of get a lay of what the course looks like. And that's for BA or MA either way. So they're pretty standard like that. As far as School of Ed has all of their courses in 2, we don't have this full semester of the 16 weeks, so we break it up into one session of 8 weeks and a second session of 8 weeks. So that's pretty much how they all look. All of our courses for ground are hybrid, so there's still a component in which you would be completing discussion posts in the Canvas learning management system that we have. So you would still be expected to participate in that manner. Even if you were physically going to class, you would still have those same responsibilities. So there's, I believe it's, if I can remember the numbers correctly, I think it's 40 hours face-to-face and then 15 of Canvas. With those ground courses is the expectation. So that's kind of translated into the virtual world now. Again, with still engagement, just not sitting in front of a computer screen for a solid 4 hours or so, just adapting it. And then there are some courses, some classes have take little breaks or do breakout rooms. So we're trying to get really innovative in trying to make these opportunities as engaging as possible. Just because we know those people who chose ground really like it because they really like that interaction with their instructors as well as the other students. Because again, like I said earlier, we really are a constructivist institution. So we really want to not just be sages on the stage, if you will, but to give credence to your backgrounds, your knowledge, because if you've come here from, say, a different field, you might have a different perspective on something that could really influence and make an impact on how others see themselves or how they approach something that they wouldn't have otherwise thought of, only having, this ECE mind or background. So that would be something that would be completely valid and valued. And it's still so even on an online modality, because you're encouraged to participate in those discussions, with respect and back and forth, and really kind of, again, even if it's an online environment, we still want it to be a learning community.
Okay, Christy, we had a follow-up question regarding the 40 hours of instruction. The question was, did you say 40 hours a week?
No. For a course.
Yeah, so the courses are spread over 8 weeks. So we're talking about 5 weeks of instruction, 5 hours each week of instruction, correct? Okay.
Right, because technically there would be 7 meetings in person because they're 8-week courses. The last week you're submitting the like post evaluation and things like that.
Okay, I think the clarification, it's not 40 hours a week.
No, it's not 40 hours a week. It's 40 hours a session.
Yeah, that would be a bit much. Okay.
Yeah, no.
Sorry, I just wanted to, I'm sorry to barge in, but yeah, I just wanted to find out how much work does it require? How much work am I signing up for? Because I have little children and I do have a business that I'm running. And I mean, it's very hard to stay open right now during the pandemic, and we never had to shut down. We had to stay open throughout the whole pandemic because we did have a few families that needed us to stay open because they were essential workers. And that was the only way we could survive as well, because we're a brand new preschool. We just opened last March in 2019. So I'm trying to plan well, because right now I'm taking so many classes to complete my certificate programs through UCLA, and I have another program in early education leadership that I'm taking online. So I'm kind of overwhelming myself right now. So I want to be smart about planning. And so the work is more effective and I'm not feeling burnt out and my brain is just shuts down at the end of the day. So I just wanted to know exactly how much work is required on a weekly basis and how many hours of instruction and how many hours of doing homework. So I know, can I take 1 class? Can I take 2 classes? Can I take 3 classes? How many can I take? And how soon can I finish my degree? I mean, I think everyone asks that question. When will I get to that goal? That's where it came from.
Those are really, really good questions. And those are questions, like you mentioned, that almost all of our students have. And it's a part of the planning. One of the things that you're going to do at the very beginning is you're going to be meeting with your enrollment counselor. And that's where a lot of that discussion will take place. One of the things they want to talk to you about is what your daily schedule is like, because every student is different. Some of our students, like yourself, are running a business or working full-time. We have a lot of students working 2 jobs, believe it or not, and going to school and taking care of the kids at home, right? So time management is super important. And that's where Pacific Oaks has a lot of options and availability for you to choose from. So there are options where if we weren't in the midst of this COVID infection right now, you would have the option to come to the Pasadena campus. And like Christy had mentioned, if you're taking a course, you come in once a week and classes start at 5:30. Well, when you're a business owner, you don't always get a chance to just shut everything down at 5 o'clock. Sometimes things go over and maybe your schedule isn't that predictive and you can't commit to being in Pasadena at 5:30. That's where we have our online option. And so we have a lot of online students who maybe can't commit to a weekly schedule in Pasadena, so they will go to school online. And the beauty of being an online student is now you have full control over your schedule, because we follow what's called an asynchronous schedule, which means essentially there's not a set time that you have to be at the computer. So if you find, today your day ran long and so you finished work at 7 o'clock instead of at 6 o'clock, you could log in and participate in classroom discussions at 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock. The classroom is open to you 24 hours, 7 days a week. And so you'll have a syllabus that outlines your assignments each week. You'll know when the assignments are due. You'll know how to reach out to your instructor during the week when you have time to maybe plan a time where you can go over questions with the instructor, or just participate and follow the class discussions that are taking place throughout the week. And so typically between those 2 different options, and we have some students that do both. Sometimes they'll take courses at the campus, and when things get busy at work or at home, they may transition and take some courses online. And that's where you can still achieve your goal without getting burnt out. And to your question regarding your schedule, we have some students that take just one course every 8 weeks. I have other students that have more time to take on additional courses. So some students will take 2 courses in an 8-week session. And so you can change from term to term depending on your life schedule and what's going on in that time period. So some students will increase their workload when they have availability. And then in the summer terms where things may get a little busy and they're on vacation, maybe they cut back and just take 1 course per term. And that will make the difference in how long it takes you as an individual to finish your degree. Every student starts at different places. And so you'll have a conversation at the beginning with your enrollment counselor to help with the pre-planning. And then when you get started, you'll have an academic counselor helping you with the graduation planning, helping you with your future registration courses, helping you stay on track with your goal, because every student may have a different goal and time frame. Does that
Just
help?
very last question. I'm sorry, there is another question about scholarships on the chat. I don't mean
Yep.
to cut them
That's-
off, but
that's
just
okay.
very quick question. Last meeting I attended, I think Michael mentioned that, I don't remember exactly who, sorry, I'm not gonna name the names, but it's been mentioned that it could take about 18 months, from 18 months and more to complete your degree course. And I was wondering, if you're planning on completing it in 18 months, how many classes do you have to take?
That depends on how many courses you actually need. So one of the things that takes place is when you submit your transcripts, we do an evaluation, and then there's a conversation that you'll initially have with your enrollment counselor, and then there's a follow-up conversation with your academic counselor. But that will tell us, okay, you have, I'm going to use an example, you have 10 classes left to finish your degree, or 11 classes left. What we can do is we can have you on a plan where you're taking 2 courses each term, and that will allow you to complete 12 courses in that year, because there's 6 terms in a year, in a calendar year. Or you may say, I can't take 2 courses each term, I can do it every other term. And that may be the difference between 12 months and say 18 months. So your plan will be specific to you and your particular needs and where you're starting from, because every student is going to transfer in different units. So we're going to have different plans for each student.
Got it. Thank
But
you.
you can customize it, and we can create a goal that you want to shoot for and aim for. And then we'll show you the number of courses you would need to take to hit that goal.
Got it. Thank you.
And then the question regarding scholarships, because that's sitting in there as well. So there was a question regarding applying for scholarships directly with Pacific Oaks and applying for scholarships through a third party. So as a new student, we offer what we call institutional scholarships, and they're on our website, but you want to talk to your enrollment counselor about the institutional scholarships. And there are multiple scholarships that you can choose from and apply for, depending on your qualifications. And those are designed for our new students coming in to their first 4 terms. When you complete your first 4 terms, we have additional scholarships that are offered that are called donor scholarships, and you apply directly with Pacific Oaks for those scholarships as well. Now, there are a plethora of scholarships that are being offered by third parties. And there are multiple third-party websites where you can go and find these scholarships. But we've taken the added step to add an additional person to our team. Her name is Bernice Orozco, and she's our financial aid coordinator. She's our financial aid coordinator, but she doesn't work in the financial aid department. She's almost like a liaison between you and financial aid to help you find outside resources that can also help bridge the gap and bring down the cost of your education. So she'll help you apply for scholarships that are outside of Pacific Oaks, help you identify them. If you have questions about writing your essay, she can help support you with that as well. And so there are 2 different ways. You definitely want to apply for our institutional scholarships at Pacific Oaks. And then you also want to meet with Bernice Orozco and talk about third-party scholarships. You can also meet with your enrollment counselor. They've been trained to also help support you and help find scholarships for you as well. Okay, I hope I answered that question.
And I think there
let's
was,
see.
I did see one other one that was in there for Christy, I think would probably be this question. It was someone looking to go into behavioral coaching, and Christy wanting to know just a little bit more about the trauma specialization in our master's in ECE program. Christy, are you there?
Am. Here I am.
There you are.
So our master's in EEC program with the trauma specialization has many of the ECE core components, and then there are 4 trauma courses that you will take for that specialization. Let's see if I can pull them out of my brain. There is the parent incarceration course. There is a trauma and immigration course. There is a, I believe, death, divorce, and difficult times course. And then the 4th one is, I'm only thinking of the one that we no longer have in the MA, which is we still have it in the BA. What is it? I'm sorry, I'm blanking on that 4th one, but there's a 4th trauma course that is part of that specialization. So it covers a variety of specialized topics, if you will, related to trauma. Let me see if I have a cheat sheet here that can help me remember. Oh no, this is the BA. So unfortunately, I don't have that 4th one. That's just eluding my brain right now, but there are 4 courses in trauma specialization that you would take for that concentration, in addition to those, if you want to call them core ECE, like the 530, like the 540 that was talked earlier, and the 500, you would still take those courses. And then there's another moral and ethical decision making, which is 520. And then you would take 660, which is the culminating action research. And then you would also take those 4 trauma specialization courses for that degree requirement. So they can be very hefty, but very worthwhile, because we're living in a world full of trauma, and we're all experiencing this trauma together right now. So having a trauma-informed practice is very valuable, and, I mean, to be honest, marketable. Yep. For your career goals, but just also to be able to relate to children and families who maybe are going through situations that you didn't consider previously, or maybe didn't understand all of the complexities that could have been involved, or again, the whole child approach that could be at play in those certain kinds of circumstances.
And I'll just throw in there, for those here who aren't aware, we do have that trauma study specialization available at the master's level, but also at the bachelor's level. So if you're seeking a bachelor's degree, we do have a trauma studies concentration within the bachelor's as well. We do know it's extremely important. It's rare that you find a classroom these days where there is not a child that has experienced some form of trauma. So being able to understand that is vitally important in being an effective ECE professional.
Excellent. Okay. Well, we're coming here towards the end of our presentation. We want to make sure that you have our contact information. You'll see on the screen here Christy Waterman's email address. You'll also see my email address. And I'll go one step forward. The telephone number that you see on the line there, that's to our main line. If you have any questions for me directly regarding admissions, schedule, financial aid, scholarships, you can reach me directly at 626 529. My last four digits are 8070, so 8070, and that would be my direct line. I will make sure that your enrollment counselor reaches out to you in the coming days just to follow up to see if you have any questions or if there's anything that we can help you with that wasn't covered in the presentation. But what I want you guys definitely to walk away with is knowing that there is support here. Christy Waterman is going to be here for you guys to help answer questions and be around, and she's somebody that we rely on a lot when we have questions ourselves as enrollment counselors. But you'll have an enrollment counselor, you'll have an academic counselor helping you with your schedule. When you get started with your classes, there's also a faculty advisor when you have questions about assignments or reaching out to your instructor, and then obviously your instructor is there for you as well. So we want to make sure you guys understand there is a team supporting you when you do go back to school. We know that all students need support, and so I'm going to leave it there. Were there any other questions that we didn't cover that maybe we can catch here in the next few minutes? Okay. Well, awesome. I appreciate everyone's time tonight. I'm glad you guys took out some time to get to know our early childhood education programs, get a chance to meet Christy and Dr. Judy Castro. Michael Lopez is our Associate Vice President of Enrollment at Pacific Oaks College. And again, I'm the Director of Admissions here. So we welcome you. We look forward to seeing you guys in the spring. We'll be here to support you over the next couple of months with admissions and helping you get started. And I hope you guys have a wonderful evening and take care. We'll be back in touch again with you soon.
Thank you very much.
Bye.
Good evening. Bye-bye.